If you're obsessed with the INPLICK anime as much as I am, then you're probably curious as to how to recreate the creator's style. Well, in this video I'm going to go over how to recreate INPLICK style using these images I found on their Instagram. As I always say when studying an art style, it's important to know what your main goal is. What about the style do you want to focus on the most? In my case, it was the way they render and their anatomy. So that's what I focus the most on top of everything else. When it comes to the length of the face, if you take the amount of space between the eyes and the eyebrows, a male character's face is about the size of 5 to 6 of them, while for female characters, it's more like 4 to 5. The male characters all have strong jawlines and pointy chins, while the female characters' faces are usually a bit softer with a slightly smaller chin. For the eyes, interestingly, they all seem to follow one shape, which is the parallelogram. However, to make them look a little bit different and adjust the character's looks, small parts are changed. For more serious or intense characters, the entire eye is very angular at all points. Meanwhile, for someone where we want them to seem a bit more bubbly like Xiaoxi, then the part of the eye on the inside is slightly rounded, so it's not as sharp. And lastly, for female characters as well as child characters, or just really anyone that we want to have a very soft look to them, the eye is much more rounded but still follows the base parallelogram shape. The nose, mouth, and rest of the character's anatomy is pretty typical anime style anatomy. They use a thicker neck instead of a thinner one for the characters, and they are rather tall at 8 to 9 heads for adults. Not to mention the hands, which are rather big, with the palm alone taking up the character's face. The line art is rather simple. The brush is just a typical hard round brush with tapered ends, no opacity variations or size variations. The line art is quite thin and the thickness doesn't vary often besides in a few select spots where you'd want more depth. The color is usually a darker brown rather than a pure black, but some parts of the line art changes color during the rendering phase to match its surrounding colors and give it a softer look. Details like clothing folds and hair strands aren't done with line art, but rather done with rendering, so a line art is more to block out the character's silhouette with details coming in the rendering phase. The rendering phase is where they really put it all together. Even though it looks complicated at first, it's actually not that bad. The brush is like the line art brush for some parts, but sections that we want to appear softer have the tips of the brush being a lower opacity to give it a more painterly effect. The overall color palette tends to lean more towards pastel colors, following a mainly blue and pink scheme, with most colors in the piece being a bit desaturated except the skin and shadows. The skin usually has a pinkish hue and the shadows is usually a saturated purple as its basis. But more saturated, almost neon colors are added to the shadows to give it a pop of color, usually being either blue, pink, or purple, and sometimes a bit of green. These colors are also used to outline the shadows and help them pop out. For those of you that know what a Terminator line is, that's basically what it acts as. As to where to use each of these colors, it's really up to what you think looks good, as it doesn't seem to follow a hard pattern. And besides those colors, they'll also often use a soft gray when they want a dark background. Highlights don't normally appear in the hair. They can sometimes, they just usually don't. But just like before, I don't think there's a hard rule as to when they decide to include it or not. I think it's really just up to preference and what they want for that piece. The eyes also normally don't have highlights, but when they do, it's just a white circle above the top of the eye. Lastly, one of the more distinctive parts of the style, in my opinion, is a strong blush that's included under the eyes. It's just a pinker and darker version of the skin tone, and this blush is also used on the character's hands, things like their knuckles or any joints. From what I can tell, they don't seem to use any filters at the end, but they do often include graphic design as the backgrounds. I won't go over that here, but I may in a future video as I really like the background.